Mayor of Vista, John Franklin. John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Okay, so talk to us about this audit and what it reveals.
Yeah, so we actually got the second wave of a major audit that was required by state law. Lawmakers a few years ago required an independent auditor at SANDAG because of scandals that have been brewing there for a long time. And what's really troubling is the way that SANDAG, its board, and its leaders have responded to the auditor. In the first round of the audit, the auditor claimed that SANDAG leaders altered her audit report before passing it along to the board, mischaracterized her finding, withheld information to mislead the governing board. These are really serious charges. And so one of the things that's most troubling is that they redacted essential information that was not confidential in supplying to the auditor. So they hindered her work, and she used that word hindered when she talked about the audit that she revealed this month, which was the second wave. And in this second wave, she said basically that the records at SANDAG were sloppy, that they had violated state contracting law dozens of times, that they had routinely exceeded their authorized spending limit without going to the board. In one case, bringing a contract all the way up to $99,999, evidencing the fact that they knew that there was a limit, that they could not spend $100,000. But then dozens of other times they spent over that limit without going to the board. There was, in the last round of the audit, we had $17,000 in fine dining bills for the agency's executive director, Hassan Akrada.
Who makes $414,000 a year.
Exactly. I mean, I cannot, when I really started to think about this, and one of the most troubling things that I found out was they said most of these bills for dining were during off hours.
Yeah.
I don't even know why this person would be entertaining or who he would be entertaining. And to this degree and extent,
well, also
really
listed,
troubling.
Also listed as improper gifts and bonuses made to staff, nearly $30,000 to Hassan Akrada.
And the lawyer for SANDAG actually argued under the state constitution, public agencies cannot make what's called a gift of public funds. That means that when we have agency employees, we make a contract with them, and that contract spells out the compensation to be provided in exchange for services rendered. We don't pay bonuses in the government world to our employees.
Right.
So bonuses are highly irregular, and they argued that the bonuses were totally normal. Of course, they came at a time when the agency was flush with cash. This is an agency that has $1.2 billion of federal and state money that flows to our region, and it's an agency that has the primary purse strings over our Transnet tax, which is a half-cent sales tax that San Diego County residents are going to pay for about 60 years, and we started paying it back in the 80s. And here's the most troubling thing of all, is we're not getting the projects that we've been promised. And one of the things yesterday, in the meeting before the audit report, there was an exercise to talk about the 2025 regional plan, which of course is going to be great interest, and we're all wondering whether or not the mileage tax is actually going to be removed. But one of the things that they got out of their public outreach meetings, the number one thing was eliminate the road user charge, the mileage tax. Mm-hmm. The number two thing was we want projects built. We don't want to talk about them for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Citizens are no longer seeing the projects that they have paid for decades come out of the ground. Government is not running efficiently. It's not producing the product, and it's spending billions of dollars to do it every year. And people are wondering, with all of this waste, where's the product?
And these are the people who are trying to get us out of our cars and into mass transit in the name of climate change.
That's exactly right. And we're starting to see, as I was here and talked with one of your co-anchors in past weeks about one of the members of the Vista City Council being paid to lobby the SANDAG Board of Directors. She's receiving a salary, and she's disclosed on her public financial disclosure that she receives a salary. And I have to ask the question, who is it that has a financial motive to pay somebody to go and influence the SANDAG Board of Directors, and is it appropriate? And of course, I say it's not for a publicly elected official to receive a salary to influence an organization that they were elected to govern. It's corruption.
Yeah, definitely. Let me ask you a question in closing, and I'm speaking figuratively here. Is it time to blow up SANDAG?
You know what?
I mean, do we just scrape it and start all over again?
I was with Jim Desmond at a press conference about a year ago, and I was a little reluctant, based on what we had seen at that point, to call for Hassan Akrada's job. And I'll tell you, I really have wanted, and I still want, to keep the focus on the elected officials who are the governing board. They are the ones who were elected and are accountable to the people. And I want the taxpayers to hold the elected officials accountable. But at this time, given the fact that this auditor, Mary Kashmashrab, has said repeatedly that she has been hindered in her efforts, that the agency redacted records that she asked for that were not confidential records, that she's withheld the identities of contractors when requested, something is very wrong. It is the malfeasance of standing in the way of a state appointed auditor. That is why I say at this time that Hassan Akrada should be terminated for failure to fully and openly comply with this audit. And I do believe that SANDAG is now too big. You know, the Metropolitan Planning Organization is one of the 27 government hats that SANDAG wears, but it's also the largest of those hats. Any municipal area of 200,000 or more people could form a new Metropolitan Planning Organization. And I suggest it's time for us in North County to form a new Metropolitan Planning Organization and bring our state and our federal tax dollars directly to our region, where we can build the roadway infrastructure that serves the needs of the commuters and citizens of North County. And also, yes, we want to build better mass transit infrastructure. They've tried to make it, they have made it a false choice. They've said if you're for building roads, then you must be against the environment and you must be against mass transit. Nobody's against the environment, and nobody's against making sure, and I particularly am a champion as a guy who rode buses and trains for years when he couldn't afford a car. I'm a champion for people that need the opportunity, the economic opportunity to get to work. And if a bus or a train gets you there and it gives you the opportunity to attain the American dream, that's why I'm serving the public, is because I believe the American dream is alive and well, but we have to protect the equality of opportunity for that American dream. And this kind of corruption is standing in the way of that. When we work hard, we pay our taxes. When politicians, you know, that was one of the things also in the last 18 months, SANDAG wanted to support new taxes, not just the road user charge, but 3 new 1/2 cent sales taxes. And this is one of the things the auditor called out directly is, she said, again, you're overpromising projects that you can't afford to pay for with regard to these tax proposals. You're misleading people, and we've been misled multiple times. I-15 and 78, we're waiting for an improvement to the interchange there. We still have a stoplight at I-5 and 78 highway. People are waiting a huge backup. Where else in the county do people wait at a stoplight to get from one highway to another highway? We've been promised this since 1980. I had Ernie Cowan, my good friend, is the former mayor of Escondido, 40 years ago. He was the chairman of SANDAG. And he said to me in 2015, when they wanted to raise a Measure A, they wanted a new 1/2 cent sales tax, would have been the 3rd extension of Transnet. He said, John, I supported this because I believed. I believed back in the 80s when I was a young man that these people would do the things with this tax money that they promised us, but they didn't do it. And he said, you know, fool us once, shame on them. Fool us twice, shame on us.
Right.
And that's why I opposed in 2015 Measure A. I've opposed all new efforts to raise taxes because of exactly this. This auditor has demonstrated that the relationship between the people receiving these contracts and the people making the decisions is too cozy. And I have serious questions about even whether state investigators, and by the way, Mary, the independent auditor, has called for a further investigation. She's referring her audit findings now to outside investigators. And because of the large number of federal dollars, I would like to see federal investigators look at whether or not we complied with our own laws that require, and this is a big one, numerous times, dozens of times, failed to compete contracts that were of sufficient size that they were required to be openly bid and competed for. There were no documents. There's a requirement to issue a justification document when a government agency goes to a sole source contract. You have no competition, the price goes way up. And I'll close with this. She said the consequences of failing in our safeguards are unanticipated cost increases, collusion between staff and contractors, and this is big, losing federal grants due to non-compliance. When the federal government sees that we're not complying with our own laws and that we have irregularities, we lose federal funding opportunities. So we've got a lot of work to do. I want to say Memorial Day is big for me, remembering those million who died to keep us free. Phil and Neil that are on next are good friends.
Yeah.
I look forward
Looking
to
forward to that.
remembering Memorial Day.
All right.
Thanks for having me,
Vista
Jason.
Mayor John Franklin. Hey, more to come on this. I know there's a lot
Yes.
more to come on this. Thanks for sharing. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.